Why, like this? Mom. What happened? This, the person. I thought about it and realized I shouldn't have shown my son his father's affair. Knowing such a thing during his formative years could affect his mental growth. I realize that now, but at the time, I didn't even have the luxury to think about such matters. Ah. So he was really doing it. I had suspected something was off, feeling it was somewhat suspicious, so I thought maybe. I wanted to believe that someone with a normal sense of morality wouldn't cheat, but I guess expecting normalcy from someone who disregards his family was my mistake. What should I do from now on? It's okay. Leave it to me. But I have one thing to confirm. Do you want to continue living with this jerk father? Of course not. After such betrayal has come to light, I don't want to live with him anymore. But there's also the matter of our livelihood. Got it. Then it's simple. Saying that, my son smiled and went back to his room. I didn't know what he was planning, but I decided to wait until the day of the affair trip. On the day, my husband left the house with a smile, but I was shocked by the action my son took the next moment. My name is Sherry, living with my 3-year-old son and husband, building a happy family. Welcome home. I made steak and potatoes today because you said you wanted to eat it. Oh, right. What about the bath? Is it ready? I've just heated it up, so it's ready anytime. I also bought a new bath salt, so feel free to use your favorite one. Got it. I'll take a bath first, so could you get a beer for me when I come out? My husband hasn't been much of a talker since we were dating. Because of his reticence, it was often hard to understand what he was thinking or feeling, but I didn't pry too much. That's why we could maintain a certain distance and live together comfortably. I won't be home tomorrow. Going out drinking with a senior. Is that so? I might miss the last train, so I'll come back on the first one. I might stay at a hotel, but I won't be coming home tomorrow. Oh. Okay. Although we seemed happy to those around us, once our child turned 3, my husband started ignoring our family and focusing solely on himself. I understood he was stressed from work, but I wished he'd pay more attention to our family. As a stay-at-home mom, it felt wrong to complain to my husband, who was earning for us. I understood that much, but I still wished he'd cherish our family more. Compared to other families, I knew comparison was pointless, but in my circle, families would go out on weekends, and couples remained close even after having kids. The grass always looks greener on the other side, but I couldn't help feeling a bit dissatisfied. Next Sunday is Tony's birthday. What should we do? He wants to go to an amusement park. I have plans to go golfing with a colleague next Sunday, so I can't. Why don't you two go? What? It's his birthday. It doesn't matter if I'm there or not. If he wants to go to the amusement park, you two can take the train. I have commitments with the company, so I can't go. It was rare for me to complain about what my husband did, but this was unforgivable. How could he prioritize his golf over our child's important day? Indeed, I understand the importance of relationships with colleagues at work and how it can affect promotions. Having worked in a company myself, I tried to be understanding towards my husband, but this is simply unacceptable. At least once a year, on his birthday, he should clear his schedule no matter what. Considering he goes out with colleagues from work regularly, it wouldn't hurt to prioritize family for once, I deeply believe. If it were our wedding anniversary or my birthday, I could understand his point of view. Putting off couples matters isn't unreasonable or bizarre. However, this is about our child. I cannot stay silent on this matter. Regardless of what plans one might have, clearing your schedule for your child should be a given. Wait a minute. Prioritizing golf over our child's birthday is just wrong, isn't it? Think about the family for once. It only happens once a year, and we hardly ever go out as a family these days. Birthdays happen every year, and kids will cling to their mother anyway, so there shouldn't be a problem if you two go. I already have plans, so don't nag me about it. It's annoying. Annoying. Are you saying work is more important than family? Of course, I understand work is important, and I didn't want to say this. You know I've never complained about you not coming home until morning or going out on weekends, right? But, shouldn't you make time for your child's important day once a year? Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a father? Earning money is my role as a father. You're supposed to do the childcare and housework as a mother, that's just normal. Don't push your maternal duties onto me. I'm not trying to push my maternal duties onto my husband. And if he thinks being a father means he doesn't need to be involved in childcare, he's sorely mistaken. To say celebrating our child's birthday together is pushing responsibilities is absurd. Is this really how he feels about his child? I've begun to doubt whether he truly cares about the family. My trust in my husband has gradually diminished compared to when we first got married. Despite our attempts to discuss this, he wouldn't change his golf plans, and ultimately, my son and I celebrated his birthday alone. As my son wished, I took him to the amusement park, and we had his favorite steak for dinner. My son seemed genuinely happy, but he kept wondering why his father wasn't there, looking a bit sad about it. He's old enough to understand things, so why can't my husband be more considerate? I decided to move past this resentment and focus on the future. Years passed, and it became the norm for my husband to prioritize himself over spending time with the family. Hey, are you talking bad about me to Tony? What? No, I haven't said anything, but what's going on? He asked me why I don't cherish you. That kind of talk sounds like he's disrespecting his father, doesn't it? No. I haven't talked about you at all? Then teach him properly. The way he speaks to his father, he doesn't understand anything. It's disrespectful. I've never badmouthed my husband to our son or shared my complaints about him. I believed family issues should stay between the spouses, not wanting to cause conflict within the family. I wanted my son to focus on himself. I thought to myself that I wouldn't say such things, but perhaps my son, observing the situation, had his own questions and dissatisfaction with how his father treated me. Instead of reflecting on his actions, my husband lashed out at me. They say people become more set in their ways as they age, but to think he's reached the point of being problematic before even hitting his 40s. However, it's clear my husband no longer holds any love for the family, something I've come to accept without intending to delve deeper into it. Becoming a single-parent family would be tough on my son, and I didn't want to stir up any major issues. With that resolve, I continued to stay married to him. With my son starting elementary school, I found myself concerned about something and didn't have the time or the peace of mind to attend to my husband's issues. Thank you for taking the time to come in today, despite your busy schedule. Thank you as well. Is there a problem with my child? It's not a problem per se. It's more like he's doing too well. What? I was at a loss for words upon hearing the teacher's statement. I assumed my son's grades were among the top in his class, wondering if there was an issue with his attitude in class or perhaps he was boasting about his academic abilities to his friends. These were my thoughts heading into the meeting. However, what the teacher said was none of the above. Doing too well to the point of concern, what could that mean? Doing too well, what do you mean by that? Well, it's just that his level is completely different from the others. Especially in math, he solves problems in less than a minute that others take about 10 minutes to solve. My son was called out by his teacher for being too smart. Indeed, I knew he had good grades, but I hadn't realized he was that exceptional. Math, you say? We haven't done any special studying at home. I had him do problems that middle school students learn, and he got them all correct. He might have a special talent in math. You know, like those cases overseas where elementary students solve college-level math problems. I think he might have that kind of talent. Seeing the test paper the teacher showed me truly surprised me. Perhaps my son had a prodigious talent. The teacher thought so too, which is why they reported it to me. If he has such talent, not providing an education that nurtures it could stifle his potential. I wanted to avoid that at all costs as a parent, so I decided to consult with my husband immediately. The teacher told me something. Even if he's a bit smart, he'll be just like everyone else by middle school, so don't get carried away and do something strange. He's fine as he is. You shouldn't say things like that. He might be gifted, you know. A normal environment won't do for him. And who's going to pay for that? You don't even work, and here you are, getting ahead of yourself. It's ridiculous to speak up when you don't have the money. At my husband's words, I was left speechless. Indeed, he was the one earning money, and if he said no, we couldn't change our current situation. However, not doing anything would be a disservice to our son's talent. I couldn't let that happen. I decided to look into private schools and transfer my son to one. The school I found was one of the few in the US that focuses on education for gifted children, believing it could help him develop his talent freely. Are you really going to transfer him? Remember, I won't pay a dime for tuition. I know, it's fine. I've started working part-time, and my parents said they'd help with the tuition. As long as you have a plan and can manage, fine. But remember, I won't help at all. Don't come asking me to pay for tuition later, I absolutely refuse. After having his say, my husband left, seemingly indifferent to our child's needs. It seemed like as long as he was okay, everything was fine to him. He'd contribute the bare minimum to living expenses and spend the rest on leisure. There were weekly outings to drinking parties or golf, but family trips were non-existent. Considering our son hardly had any family outings during summer breaks, it saddened me how selfish he could be. I sighed again at the thought. However, I had little to no expectations from my husband from the start. I decided then to live for my son's sake, not just for the family. The transfer process was swiftly completed, and my son seemed happier and more fulfilled at his new school than before. How's school lately? Math is more fun than before, and every day is interesting. That's wonderful to hear. Mom, I know you've worked really hard for me. Truly, thank you. Perhaps I was making my son worry about me. That thought crossed my mind, but if he was happy, then I was willing to do anything. Although my parents were helping with the tuition fees, it was still not enough. I made up the difference by working part-time. My husband sometimes told me to contribute money to the household since I was working, but I didn't really mind that. Then, before I knew it, Tony graduated from middle school and moved on to high school. He expressed his desire to attend the University of Harvard and was eager to compete in mathematics Olympiads in high school. He really is reliable. I began to think I needed to support him even more dedicatedly, when one day, I'll be going on a business trip next Friday. I'll be back on Monday. I see. Good luck. I responded as if it didn't bother me, but deep down, I was a bit shocked. The relationship between my husband and me had been cold for many years, but recently I had been hoping we could live happily together again once our son became an adult. The day my husband was leaving for his business trip was our wedding anniversary. Well, he's probably forgotten about it, and even if he hasn't, he likely has no intention of celebrating it anyway. But, despite our relationship having cooled off, we had been married for 15 years. That couldn't just be erased. I felt that way, but what's this? While my husband went back to his room to pack his suitcase, his smartphone, left on the living room table, rang. Normally, I wouldn't care, but since it was right in front of me, I saw the notification that came up. It wasn't so much that I intentionally looked, it just caught my eye. No way. Who is this? The moment I saw the notification on my husband's phone screen, my head went blank, and I couldn't find the words to continue. The notification was from a woman. I only saw the icon, name, and the message she sent. It was, "Looking forward to our trip on Friday," accompanied by a heart emoji. Friday was the day my husband was leaving for his business trip. My head went blank, but what did this message mean? By this point, an affair was certain, but I couldn't accept that reality. No, perhaps I just didn't want to accept it. We might not have been close, but we had been married for 15 years. Our son wasn't even an adult yet, and we were supposed to be just getting started. A complete betrayal had been uncovered. But all my fleeting hopes were crushed. Why, like this? Mom. What happened? This, the message. I thought about it and realized I shouldn't have shown my son his father's affair. Knowing such a thing during his formative years could affect his mental growth. I realize that now, but at the time, I didn't even have the luxury to think about such matters. Ah. So he was really doing it. I had suspected something was off, feeling it was somewhat suspicious, so I thought maybe. I wanted to believe that someone with a normal sense of morality wouldn't cheat, but I guess expecting normalcy from someone who disregards his family was my mistake. What should I do from now on? It's okay. Leave it to me. But I have one thing to confirm. Do you want to continue living with this jerk father? Of course not. After such betrayal has come to light, I don't want to live with him anymore. But there's also the matter of our livelihood. Got it. Then it's simple. Saying that, my son smiled and went back to his room. I didn't know what he planned to do, but after reassuring me to leave everything to him, I decided to trust my son. During that time, I researched the allowances and support available to single-parent families, preparing for the possibility of divorce. Before I knew it, the day my husband left for his affair trip arrived. I felt uneasy all morning, but my husband, oblivious to my feelings, left the house with a smile. Thinking about how much he must be looking forward to his affair trip, I watched him leave and then sighed heavily as I sat down in the living room chair. Hello? Is this XX Incorporated? I'd like to speak to Mr. Walters, the sales representative, please. My son began calling my husband's company. I didn't know what he was planning, but he mentioned my husband's name. Then, Tony moved to the hallway to continue his conversation, and I couldn't hear what was being said. But he returned in less than a minute and said, "Turns out he told his company he was using his paid leave for this. Now we have all the evidence we need. Well, let's just wait for him to come back. He might return sooner than the end of his supposed business trip." My son said this with a grin and turned on the TV, lying down on the couch. Just confirming my husband wasn't on a business trip didn't seem like enough to understand what was happening. I was completely lost. But maybe my son had a plan I didn't know about. With that thought, I decided to stay silent for a while until my phone rang. Hey. You contacted my company, didn't you? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The company called me just now. The call from the company must have been because of the call my son made. But why was he so angry? I was a bit perplexed, but had something I wanted to say. Are you surprised because the company called during your affair trip? Or did your girlfriend get upset? No, what? You didn't think I knew? I've known about your deceit all along. You're out on an affair trip while lying about a business trip, aren't you? How's the affair trip going? I had never been so assertive with my husband before, and it was the first time I had caught him off guard with his affair. After a moment of silence, I wasn't about to let him off the hook. You think staying silent will make this go away? I need an explanation. Well, that's... Right as my husband started making excuses, Tony took my phone and put it on speaker. I wasn't sure what Tony was planning, but he signaled me with his eyes. I handed him the phone, and then... Hello? Do you even realize what you've done? What? You were the one who called the company? I just wanted to check if you were really on a business trip. And you taking time off during our busiest period? You don't consider the trouble you cause at work, let alone forget our wedding anniversary. And you have the nerve to get mad at me? I'm almost impressed. Tony, usually so kind, taunted my husband with a tone that was sure to infuriate him, given my husband's high pride. But Tony was so right that my husband couldn't respond, only letting his frustration over the phone be heard. Mom's planning to divorce you, and will make sure you pay compensation and child support. That's your duty and the right thing to do. What? I won't accept that. It doesn't matter if you accept it or not, we'll just go to court. Don't underestimate people. Court. So, what I'm saying is, we're going to get a divorce. I'm obviously going with Mom, and about the financial payments like compensation and child support, we'll get a lawyer to make sure everything is handled properly. Those are the 3 points. After saying this, my son hung up the phone on my husband. Despite multiple calls coming in afterward, my son told me I didn't have to answer, so I ignored them. But what surprised me the most was what my son was saying. We're getting a divorce. That wasn't my decision. Sure, I told my son I wanted a divorce, but realistically, I couldn't survive after the divorce. My parents aren't wealthy, and living with them in the countryside wouldn't work considering my son's school. The idea of managing to pay for his tuition and live post-divorce seemed impossible. Wait. You said we're getting a divorce. Is that true? You want a divorce, don't you? I do, but it's not as simple as that. Don't worry about it. It's not as complicated as you think. What? I've already consulted a lawyer, and in cases like ours, there's a 99% chance we'll come out on top, so don't worry. We'll have him pay all the compensation and child support in one lump sum. That should cover a significant part of our living expenses, and considering the various allowances we can get, it's not an unrealistic plan. I was amazed by my son, still in high school, taking such proactive steps for our future. It should have been me doing all this research and making decisions, but my son was proving to be so reliable. I truly felt grateful for him from the bottom of my heart. Following my son's advice, I decided to consult with the lawyer again and began the process for claiming compensation and child support. With evidence like chat screenshots from my husband's phone, the lawyer assured us we were unlikely to lose if it went to court. Upon communicating this to my husband through the lawyer, my husband returned home earlier than planned. Hey. You two have gone too far. Cut it out with the jokes. Who's joking? You've been cheating, right? And the woman is married, too. What are you even doing? How do you know all that? It's obvious, right? Just from her chat name and profile picture, I could track down her social media. From there, it's easy to figure out who she is, whether she's married, where she lives, and what her interests are. Although my husband and son started arguing as soon as my husband came back, my son had previously told me to let him handle anything that arose. Feeling a bit anxious but determined to support my son, I silently watched their argument unfold. And after all I've done for you, do you feel no guilt for repaying my kindness with this betrayal? Let me ask you, do you feel no guilt for betraying your family for 15 years? You're quick to judge others without reflecting on your own actions. It's pathetic for an adult. As Tony laid out the blunt truth, my husband's face turned red with anger. It was sad to see how miserable he was, but we had already packed our bags to leave. Wait. Are you really leaving? The divorce papers are on your desk. If you don't file them, I'll have the lawyer we consulted about the compensation deal with it. I'm really in a mess right now. I'm sorry, please forgive me. It was too late for apologies, not that they were genuine. It seemed more like a desperate attempt to better his situation. No matter how much he pleaded, my feelings wouldn't change. That bad, huh? The company's furious with me for causing trouble at such a critical time. And her husband contacted me. I can't handle this alone. As much as he tried to make me feel responsible, my heart was unmoved. Why should the primary victim, me, have to do anything for him? I wanted to say just that, but there was no point in continuing the conversation. Deciding it was best to leave, I quickly exited the house. For a while, my husband followed us, but we continued to ignore him and headed to our new apartment. We'll be living in an apartment from now on, but I'll work hard. What are you talking about? That's not a problem at all. I'm glad we're rid of someone as worthless as him. Thanks to my son's words, I felt empowered to move forward confidently. With the help of our lawyer, who handled the proceedings for compensation, we were able to receive a lump sum of compensation and child support until my son reaches adulthood, all within about 2 months. We also signed a pledge that he would never come near us again, truly allowing us to start a new chapter in our lives. Mom, I got into the math Olympiad. Congratulations. You've worked so hard. It's all thanks to your support. Plus, that plague of a man is gone now. 6 months later, my son's talent in mathematics continued to flourish. Living with my ex-husband must have been a mental burden on my son. I feel guilty about that, but ultimately, I'm glad things turned out this way. According to the lawyer, my ex-husband quit his job. The fact that he went on an affair trip during a busy period and the company's upper management's strict stance on affairs made his standing in the company untenable. After leaving, he also faced compensation claims from the affair partner's husband, leading to a miserable life, but that's none of my concern. I managed to become a full-time employee at the place where I was working part-time, now earning a stable though modest income. Cooperating with my son is what matters most to me now, and we've been able to recognize the importance of our family bond. My husband never really cared about his family, which is why he ended up alone in the end. I plan to continue cherishing my family, including my son and my parents. I believe that is essential for living a happy life.